Hello, this is Coding Gicha for full-stack developers. In the previous time, I covered how to install Apache HTTP Server on Windows and monitor the Apache service from the system tray. However, instead of running different sites on different hosts, I ran it only as localhost. This time, I will cover how to run different sites on multiple hosts in Apache HTTP Server. You need to register the hosts in DNS. In a development environment, you only need to recognize the hosts on your local PC so you can use the hosts file. You can do this with a GUI text editor like Notepad, but it can get a bit cluttered, so I'll use a CLI text editor. For development environments, I prefer to use the production host name with -dev. This makes it easy to distinguish between development and production web applications and allows for simultaneous development and comparison. You can select a region by pressing Alt-A and then using the arrow keys. Alternatively, you can hold down the Shift key and use the arrow keys to select a region. The copy shortcut is Alt-6, but it conflicts with the operating system's shortcuts and won't work. You can use a shortcut method like cutting and pasting instead of copying. When you exit with Ctrl-X, you'll be prompted to save any changes. Let's edit the httpd.conf file. Apache for Windows is configured by collecting the settings for each site on a per-host basis in the httpd-vhosts.conf file. Let's include the httpd-vhosts.conf file. Let's open the httpd-vhosts.conf file. I'll remove the comments to focus on the setup. Two hosts are configured for this example. I'll delete all but one example. The server admin email address is set, but I'll delete it. Since multiple hosts will be configured, I'll move the server name to the top to make it easier to identify them. I'll change the server name to the host name registered in the hosts file. The host address is used differently to distinguish between development and production environments, but using the names used in the production environment for the remaining settings will minimize modifications during deployment after development is complete. Currently, I only have one domain, gicha.org. However, since I can service more domains simultaneously, I prefer to create a directory for each primary domain and manage secondary domains as subdirectories. The default document root is server root /htdocs, but the virtual hosts document root is a subdirectory of a different path. I think there may have been a typo while porting to Windows. Access is granted only to the default document root path, so if you use a different path, you'll need to grant permissions. I prefer tab indentation, but since whitespace isn't displayed, it's hard to tell if my indentation characters are a mix of tabs and spaces. Pressing Alt-P displays whitespace. I'll use tabs for all indentation. Nano's whitespace display is a bit too colorful, so I'll toggle it with Alt-P whenever necessary. Gurum.gicha.org requires rewrite rules due to its unique implementation. Gurum.gicha.org is implemented as a single-page application, so it uses the .gig extension to virtually distinguish page addresses. I'm also developing using less in TypeScript, and when serving, I use files transpiled into CSS and JavaScript, respectively. To use rewrite rules, I need the rewrite module. The rewrite module is a fairly commonly used module, but it's a bit odd that it's not enabled by default in Apache. Let's create a docs folder. As configured in the httpd-vhosts.conf file, instead of creating directories based on the full host name, I'll configure the host management directories by creating a parent directory for each primary domain and managing secondary domains as child directories. Due to time constraints, I'll skip configuring the www secondary domain and only configure the Gurum secondary domain. I'll unpack the compressed file I've already created and distributed and configure it. I'll restart the Apache HTTP server. I can now run multiple sites simultaneously, distinguished by different host names. Gurum Gicha is currently in service and plans to offer more cloud services. In the cloud category of coding Gicha, I'll explain in detail how the features provided by Gurum Gicha were actually implemented, including the source code. The HTML editor is a JigTime module, but all other features are implemented in natural JavaScript without separate modules. I will explain as I add more features. Open Graph Protocol is a technology that uses HTML meta tags to provide a preview of a page and is used when displaying links on social networks and messengers. When sending emails instead of just a plain link address, it would be nice to be able to send a link with a preview of the page. So I implemented the ability to copy and paste the results of OGP in Gurum Gicha. Gurum Gicha's OGP is implemented server-side in PHP. Next time I'll explain how to integrate PHP with Apache and complete the OGP functionality. Thank you for watching.